Chosen one, do not open your calendar. Don't check your to-do list. What's happening to you isn't laziness, it's divine lockdown. Heaven has sealed your spirit, and it may be the only reason you survive what's coming. Can you feel it? That strange heaviness that's been sitting on your chest for weeks, that unexplainable exhaustion that sleep won't cure, that mysterious urge to withdraw from everything and everyone, even when you can't explain why. What if I told you that the very thing making you feel broken is actually God's protection over your life? You've been wondering what's wrong with you, haven't you? Why you can't seem to move like you used to? Why motivation feels like a foreign language? Why your spirit feels wrapped in cotton, muffled, distant? You've been fighting it, pushing against it, thinking you're falling behind while everyone else races ahead. But listen to me very carefully. You are not falling asleep. You are being wrapped in spiritual bandages while angels work on your soul. There's a spiritual war brewing in the heavens that most people can't even sense. The enemy is sharpening his weapons, targeting God's chosen ones with precision strikes designed to break you before your breakthrough. But God saw it coming, and He has placed you in sacred incubation. You think you're being sidelined, but you're being safeguarded. You think you're being forgotten, but you're being fortified. While others are exposed and vulnerable, you have been hidden in the shadow of the Almighty. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating. You're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. But there's something inside this shutdown you're not supposed to see until you wake up. Something being prepared in the darkness of your spirit while you rest. The enemy thinks he's winning because you're quiet. But God is using your stillness to build something in you that will shake the very foundations of hell. If you've been feeling this strange stillness, if something deep in your spirit is recognizing these words as your story, drop 99 in the comments now. That number isn't decoration, it's obedience. Heaven is watching who responds, because what I'm about to reveal will explain why you've been feeling buried alive, and why that burial is actually your resurrection beginning. Why has your body betrayed you? Why does the woman who once managed a household, raised children, and conquered every challenge now feel like she's moving through molasses? Why does the man who built businesses, led teams, and never knew the meaning of quit suddenly find himself staring at walls, unable to summon the energy to even care? You've been telling yourself it's age. You've been making excuses about slowing down. But what if I told you that this isn't your body failing you? This is God positioning you for survival. Listen to me, chosen one. You are Noah. And this is the moment before the first raindrop. You remember Noah's story, don't you? For 120 years, he hammered away at that ark while his neighbors mocked him. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, everything looked normal. But Noah knew something they didn't. He had heard from God, and that hearing made him do something that looked absolutely insane to everyone watching. He stopped his normal life. He withdrew from society. He became obsessed with building something that made no earthly sense. Sound familiar? You've been forced to slow down. You thought it was aging, but it was God saying, sit down before the flood hits. The exhaustion you've been carrying isn't weakness, it's divine sedation. That strange inability to care about things that used to matter. That's not depression. That's God removing your attachment to a world that's about to shift. The way you've been pulled away from crowds, from noise, from the endless demands of others. That's not isolation, that's incubation. You see, God doesn't just protect His chosen ones with shields and armor. Sometimes He protects them with stillness. Sometimes he saves them by making them too tired to run toward danger. Sometimes he preserves them by making them too weak to fight battles that aren't theirs. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly energized about the things that used to drive you? When was the last time you felt that fire in your belly about projects, people, or plans? That absence isn't loss. That's God removing your investment in temporary things because He's preparing you for something eternal. The prophet Habakkuk cried out, "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?" But God's answer was profound. Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. An appointed time. Not your time. Not when you think you're ready, but when heaven declares the moment has come. You've been in preparation, beloved. Not punishment, preparation. Every morning you wake up feeling like you're underwater. That's God keeping you beneath the surface while storms rage above. Every day you can't seem to find your rhythm. That's God disrupting your patterns because your old rhythms won't survive what's coming. Every night you fall asleep earlier than you used to. That's God giving you rest before the battle. But here's what will shake you to your core. You're not the only one. Right now, across this nation, across this world, God's chosen ones are experiencing the exact same thing. The intercessors are being withdrawn. The prophets are being silenced. The warriors are being made to rest, not because their work is done, but because their greatest work is yet to come. The enemy thinks he's winning because God's people seem quiet. But what he doesn't understand is that God isn't silencing his army, he's reloading them. In 1 Kings 19, after Elijah's greatest victory on Mount Carmel, he ran into the wilderness and collapsed under a tree. He was so exhausted, so overwhelmed, that he asked God to let him die. But God didn't rebuke him. God didn't tell him to snap out of it. God sent an angel to feed him and let him sleep, not once but twice. Why? Because God knew that Elijah's next assignment was going to require strength he didn't currently possess. The rest wasn't a reward for past service. It was preparation for future warfare. And that's exactly what's happening to you right now. Your body knows something your mind hasn't figured out yet. Your spirit is picking up frequencies that your ears can't hear. You're being prepared for something that requires a different kind of strength than you've ever needed before. This isn't about getting older. This is about getting ready. The pause you're in isn't weakness, it's a divine shield. While others are running around in chaos, burning themselves out on meaningless pursuits, you've been placed in a spiritual cocoon. And just like a caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by trying harder, you're not going to emerge from this season by pushing harder. You're going to emerge by surrendering to the process. The very thing that's making you feel useless is actually making you useful for what's ahead. The very thing that's making you feel weak is actually making you strong enough to handle what others can't. The very thing that's making you feel forgotten is actually proving that you're so remembered, so valued, so essential that God Himself is personally overseeing your preparation. But here's the question that will determine everything. Will you fight against this divine pause, or will you lean into it? Because the rain is coming, the flood is on the horizon, and when it hits, you'll understand why God made you build an ark when everyone else was building sandcastles. Comment, I obey, if your body has been forced into rest and your spirit knows it's not natural. But that's not the end of the story, because what God is doing in this pause, what He's building in you while you rest, is going to determine not just your survival, but your assignment in the storm that's coming. Do you know what it feels like to be held down by invisible hands? To have your spirit wrapped in chains you can't see, but you can feel every link? To be so exhausted that even breathing feels like work? You've been calling it depression. You've been calling it burnout. You've been calling it getting older. But what if What if it's none of those things? What if God has placed you on the operating table of eternity and put the world under anesthesia so he can perform surgery on your soul without interruption? Listen to me, chosen one. That heaviness pressing down on your chest isn't your enemy. It's the weight of God's hand, keeping you still while he operates on the deepest parts of your being. You think you're broken, but you're being rebuilt. You think you're dying, but you're being delivered. The psalmist knew this feeling. In Psalm 139:13, he wrote, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." But here's what most people miss. God didn't stop creating you at birth. He's still knitting, still forming, still operating on the deepest chambers of your heart. Every time you tried to get up and move forward, something stronger pulled you back. That wasn't weakness. That was the hands of heaven keeping you safe. You remember, don't you? Those mornings when you woke up with such grand plans, such determination to push through, to be productive, to get back to normal. But before you could even finish your coffee, that familiar weight settled back over you like a blanket you couldn't remove. You fought it, you resented it, you prayed against it, but God was answering a prayer you didn't even know you were praying. You see, there's a hidden chamber in heaven where God performs his most delicate work. It's not the throne room where angels sing. It's not the courts where justice is pronounced. It's the sacred surgery suite where broken spirits are made whole, where wounded hearts are given new rhythms, where exhausted souls are rewired for their divine purpose. And you, dear one, have been wheeled into that chamber. The prophet Isaiah knew about this place. In Isaiah 40:31 he wrote, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." But notice he didn't say they would keep running. He said they would be renewed. First comes the shutdown. Then comes the strength. You've been trying to explain this to people, haven't you? Your family thinks you're being lazy. Your friends think you're giving up. They don't understand why you can't just snap out of it, why you can't just push through like you used to. They've never been in the hidden chamber. They've never felt God's surgical hands working on their spirit. But you have. And that's why you're different. That's why you're chosen. Here's what's happening in that chamber right now. God is removing every toxic thought pattern that's been poisoning your peace. He's extracting every trauma that's been limiting your capacity for joy. He's performing spiritual surgery on your nervous system, rewiring your responses from fear to faith, from anxiety to authority. You think you're sleeping too much? You're not sleeping. You're under divine anesthesia. You think you're losing motivation. You're not losing anything. God is removing your need to perform for people who will never understand your calling anyway. Remember when Jesus went to heal Jairus' daughter in Mark 5? The crowd was laughing at him, mocking him, telling him it was too late. But Jesus put them all outside. He cleared the room. He allowed only Peter, James, John, and the girl's parents to witness the miracle. Even God needs a sterile environment to perform his greatest works. That's what's happening to you. God has cleared your room. He's removed the voices that would doubt his process. He's silenced the critics who would question his timing. You're not isolated. You're quarantined for a miracle. But here's the part that will shake you to your core. This isn't just about you anymore. While you've been in that sacred chamber, while you've been under heaven's anesthesia, God has been preparing you for something the world isn't ready to understand yet. There's a spiritual war coming, not the kind you read about in books or hear about in prophecy conferences, the kind that requires warriors who have been completely rewired, completely recalibrated, completely surrendered to God's frequency. The enemy has been studying your old patterns, your old responses, your old weaknesses. But God, God has been giving you new ones. You won't fight this war with the same spirit you had before your shutdown. You'll fight it with a spirit that's been operated on, upgraded, and sealed with divine authority. The enemy is preparing for the person you used to be. He has no strategy for who you're becoming. In 2 Corinthians 5:17, Paul wrote, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone, the new is here." But you can't become new while you're still operating in old patterns. The surgery chamber is where the old dies and the new is born. If this word is slicing deep, type "Yes, Lord" in the comments. Don't wait. That's how agreement is sealed. Your family may not understand why you've been different. Your friends may not comprehend why you've pulled back. But heaven understands. Heaven has been preparing you for a moment when the world will need someone who has been completely reconstructed by God's hands. The question isn't whether you'll survive this season. The question is whether you'll surrender to it completely enough to let God finish what He started. Because when you finally rise from that operating table, when the anesthesia wears off and you open your eyes, you won't just be healed. You'll be weaponized for a battle that's already begun. Why does it feel like you're living in a different dimension? Why does every clock in your house mock you with its ticking? Why do you wake up wondering if it's tomorrow or yesterday? And why does it feel like it doesn't even matter anymore? You're not losing your mind. You're not aging poorly. You're not falling behind. You have been supernaturally extracted from Chronos and placed into Kairos. You are no longer living in minutes, you are breathing in God's eternal moment. And that shift, that dimensional change, is causing every calendar in your life to become irrelevant. Listen to me carefully. The anxious feeling you've been carrying about wasted time, that's not conviction. That's warfare. The enemy wants you to believe you're behind schedule, that you've missed your window, that your best years are buried in the past. But what if I told you that God has pulled you out of time itself to protect you from the very thing that destroys most people your age? Time pressure. You've been living under the crushing weight of man's timeline. Retirement by 65, marriage by 30, kids by 35, success by 40. And if you didn't hit those marks, you felt like a failure. But God's calendar doesn't run on society's clock. It runs on His purpose. And right now, He has literally paused your biological clock to reprogram your spiritual one. You think you're getting older, but in God's realm, you're being timeless. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon wrote, "To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven." But here's what your pastor never told you about that verse. The word time in Hebrew is eth, which means the right time, the appointed time, the kairos moment, not the clock time, not the calendar time, the God time. And you, chosen one, are living in God time now. That's why nothing feels normal. That's why your old rhythms don't work. That's why you can't force yourself back into the rat race. Your spirit has been pulled into a different dimension, one where minutes don't matter, but moments do. Where productivity isn't measured by your output, but by your communion with the divine. You've been taken out of the world's timeline and placed into eternity's training ground. But here's what's going to shock you. This isn't just about your peace of mind. This isn't just about your stress levels. God didn't remove you from time to make you feel better. He removed you from time to make you untouchable. There's a war coming, not the kind you see on the news, not the kind fought with weapons. A spiritual war that will target everyone who lives by the world's clock, everyone who measures their worth by their productivity, everyone who thinks their value comes from their accomplishments. But you've been pulled out of that system entirely. While others are racing against deadlines, you're resting in God's timing. While others are panicking about their age, you're discovering that in God's realm, you're just getting started. While others are grieving lost opportunities, you're being prepared for opportunities that haven't even been created yet. You think you're behind, but you're being positioned ahead of the curve. Moses didn't lead Israel until he was 80. Abraham didn't become a father until he was 100. Anna the prophetess didn't see the Messiah until she was 84. God's greatest assignments often come to those who the world considers too old or too late. Because God's timeline isn't about speed, it's about ripeness. And you, my dear friend, are ripening in ways that can't be measured by a calendar. Your character is deepening, your wisdom is expanding, your spirit is strengthening, and all of this is happening outside the boundaries of chronological time. You're not aging, you're maturing in the spirit. But here's the part that will change everything. What you thought was delay was God lifting you out of time so the war couldn't touch you. While others are being destroyed by urgency, you're being preserved in His presence. While others are burning out from pressure, you're being refined in patience. The enemy can't attack what he can't locate. And right now, you're hidden in God's eternal moment, invisible to the forces that are destroying your generation. That restlessness you feel, that's not boredom. That's your spirit recognizing that you're operating in a different dimension now. That sense of being out of sync with everyone else, that's not alienation, that's elevation. You're seeing from a higher perspective because you've been lifted to a higher realm. Say it with me. I'm not behind, I'm being preserved. Feel those words in your spirit. Let them settle into your bones, because this isn't just positive thinking. This is prophetic truth. You haven't lost time. You've gained access to God's eternal perspective. And from that perspective, everything changes. Your past mistakes, they're not delays, they're preparation. Your current stillness, it's not stagnation, it's incubation. Your future possibilities, they're not limited by your age. They're amplified by your anointing. You are living proof that God's calendar operates on a completely different frequency than man's, and that frequency is about to become the most powerful force in your life. Because when God releases you from this sacred pause, when He moves you from Kairos back into Chronos, you won't just return to time, you'll return with the ability to bend time to His will. You'll accomplish in months what others take years to achieve. You'll speak words that carry decades of wisdom. You'll move with an authority that can only come from someone who has spent time outside of time itself. But there's something else happening in this divine extraction that you need to understand. Something that will explain why this season has felt so mysteriously powerful. Do you know what's really happening to your body when you close your eyes at night? Have you ever wondered why you wake up feeling like you've been in a battle you can't remember? What if I told you that while you think you're just sleeping, heaven is performing surgery on your soul? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. That bone-deep exhaustion you've been carrying isn't just from age. It's not just from the medications, the sleepless nights, or the weight of decades pressing down on your shoulders. Your bones have been groaning. But it's not arthritis. It's the groaning of glory being restructured. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange aching that no doctor can explain, that heaviness in your chest that X-rays can't reveal, that weariness that goes deeper than muscle and bone. You've been telling yourself it's just part of getting older, that this is what happens when you've lived as long as you have. But God is whispering a different story tonight. In Job 33:15-16, the Bible reveals something most people skip over. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls on people as they slumber in their beds, then He opens the ears of men and seals their instruction. While you've been sleeping, thinking you're just resting, God has been opening dimensions of healing you didn't even know existed. Every night when you lay your head down, feeling forgotten by the world, dismissed by the young, invisible to society, heaven sees you differently. The same God who never slumbers nor sleeps has been working the night shift over your life. While your body rests, angels have been rebuilding what stress destroyed. That heart attack you survived 3 years ago? God wasn't just healing the physical damage. He was rewiring your capacity for joy. That stroke that left you speaking slower, moving different. Heaven was installing patience you'd never had before. That depression that nearly took you under. God was excavating old wounds to plant new strength. You think you're just surviving, but you're being restored. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every night you sleep, you're not just recharging your body, you're downloading divine upgrades. Your spirit is being reconstructed while your flesh rests. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is flowing through your bloodstream, your nervous system, your cellular memory. Isaiah 40-31 promises, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." Did you catch that? Renew. Not maintain, not preserve. Renew. He's reversing the aging in your spirit. Wrinkles in your soul are smoothing under grace. But here's the part that will shake you to your core. You've survived strokes, heartache, abandonment. The doctors said you might not make it. Your children moved away. Your spouse passed on. Friends forgot to call. The world wrote you off as yesterday's news. But God has been using every loss, every pain, every sleepless night as raw material for resurrection. While you thought you were just enduring, heaven was engineering. Every tear became a seed. Every struggle became strength. Every lonely night became a classroom where angels taught your spirit. Things your mind couldn't comprehend. Do you remember the nights you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone cared if you lived or died? Those weren't just tears of sorrow. They were tears of transition. God was washing away old identities, old limitations, old lies that said your best days were behind you. You're not too old for a miracle. You're not too damaged for breakthrough. You're not too tired for transformation. The reason you've been feeling so different lately, so disconnected from your old patterns, so strangely peaceful in moments when you should be worried, it's because you're not the same person who went to sleep last month. Night after night, layer after layer, God has been rebuilding you from the inside out. Your memory might not be what it used to be, but your spirit is sharper than ever. Your body might move slower, but your soul is racing toward destiny. Your voice might be quieter, but your prayers are louder in heaven than they've ever been. The enemy thought he had you cornered. Old age, he whispered. Uselessness, he hissed. Burden, he lied. But God took every weapon meant to destroy you and turned it into a tool of transformation. That medication you take every morning, angels are using it as a delivery system for supernatural healing. That walker you lean on, heaven sees it as a scepter of authority. Those quiet hours when everyone else is busy, God calls them your throne room time. You are not winding down. You are being wound up for the greatest display of His power the world has ever seen, through someone your age. Right now, as you hear these words, something ancient and eternal is stirring in your bones. Not pain this time, power, not aching, awakening. Your spirit is remembering what your mind forgot. You were never meant to fade away. You were designed to finish strong. Lay one hand on your heart and whisper, "Restore me, Lord." Let heaven record your request. Because what God is about to do through you will make people wonder if you've discovered the fountain of youth. But you'll know the truth. You didn't find youth. Youth found you, in the form of the Ancient of Days, breathing new life into old bones, new dreams into tired hearts, new purpose into souls that thought their story was over. Your restoration isn't just personal, it's prophetic. The world needs to see what God can do with a life that refuses to quit. Are you ready to be that proof? Do you know what terrifies the enemy more than your prayers? Do you know what makes demons flee faster than your worship? Do you know what weapon you've been carrying that Satan has spent years trying to convince you is weakness? Your stillness. Your ability to be unmoved when hell is screaming at you to react. Your capacity to remain silent when every voice around you is demanding you speak. Your power to stay planted when the entire world is telling you to run. Listen to me, chosen one. The enemy has been working overtime to convince you that your recent withdrawal from activity, your sudden lack of motivation, your unexplained need to pull back from the noise and chaos, he's been whispering lies, telling you this is depression, telling you this is failure, telling you this is spiritual death. But what if I told you that your stillness is the very thing that's been destroying his plans? You see, the devil operates on chaos. He feeds on reaction. He thrives when God's people are frantic, scattered, running in circles, making noise without purpose. His entire strategy depends on keeping you in constant motion, motion without direction, activity without anointing, busyness without blessing. But then God whispered something different into your spirit. He said, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. Not be busy and prove that you trust God. Not be loud and show that you have faith. Be still. And in that stillness, something shifted in the heavenlies. The enemy's voice started losing its power over you. The urgent demands of the world began to fade. The pressure to perform, to produce, to please it all started dissolving in the sacred silence that God wrapped around your soul. You thought you were being sidelined, but you were being strategically positioned. You thought you were losing ground, but you were claiming territory the enemy didn't even know existed. You thought you were falling behind, but you were moving ahead into a dimension where Satan has no access. Your stillness became a fortress that hell couldn't penetrate. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? When was the last time you weren't anxious about the next thing, the next deadline, the next crisis? When was the last time you could sit in silence without feeling guilty about what you weren't doing? That peace, that silence, that rest, it wasn't laziness, it was warfare. Every moment you chose to be still instead of scrambling, you were declaring war on the enemy's chaos. Every time you refused to react to his provocations, you were dismantling his strategy. Every second you remained unmoved while he screamed at you to move, you were proving that his voice has no authority over your life. The Bible tells us about a storm that came against the disciples while Jesus was sleeping in the boat. Matthew 8:24 says, "Suddenly a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. But Jesus was sleeping." The disciples were panicking, but Jesus was resting. They were reacting, but he was remaining still. And when he finally spoke, what happened? He got up and rebuked the winds and the waves, and it was completely calm. Matthew 8:26. Jesus didn't defeat the storm through frantic activity. He conquered it through supernatural stillness. He didn't overcome the chaos by joining it. He silenced it by refusing to be moved by it. That's exactly what's happening in your life right now. While the enemy has been screaming at you to move, to run, to react, to prove yourself, to defend yourself, to fight back, heaven has been whispering, "Stay, rest, be still. Let me handle this." And that whisper, that divine command to stillness, has been shattering Satan's entire plan against your life. You are not weak because you've been quiet. You are not failing because you've been still. You are not falling behind because you've been resting. You are the storm's silence, the powerful, devastating quiet that comes right before God speaks and everything changes. The enemy thought he had you cornered when you stopped moving. He thought he had you defeated when you stopped striving. He thought he had you broken when you stopped fighting his way. But God was setting a trap. Every day you remained still. Every moment you chose rest over reaction. Every second you stayed unmoved. You were building spiritual pressure that the enemy couldn't see. You were accumulating divine power that he couldn't measure. You were loading a weapon that he didn't even know existed. Your stillness wasn't surrender, it was strategy. And now, as God prepares to release you from this sacred incubation, as he gets ready to launch you into your next assignment, the enemy is about to discover what happens when someone who has learned to be still in God's presence finally moves at God's command. The devastation will be absolute. While the enemy screamed, "Move," heaven whispered, "Stay," and that whisper shattered his entire plan. You haven't been hiding from your destiny. You've been loading your weapon. You haven't been avoiding your calling. You've been sharpening your sword. You haven't been running from the battle. You've been positioning yourself for total victory. The stillness that the enemy thought was your weakness is about to become his destruction. Type, "Stillness is my strategy," if you now know the enemy was terrified of your rest. But here's what happens next. When God finally says, "Move," and you discover the supernatural power that was built inside you during the silence, why do you feel like you're living in a tomb when everyone else seems to be dancing in the light? Why has God pulled the curtains around your life while others bask in public favor? Why does it feel like you've been buried alive while the world moves on without you? Listen to me, chosen one. Your hiddenness isn't punishment, it's preparation. You're not being forgotten, you're being forged in the secret place where only heaven's eyes can see. You've been crying out, "God, where is everyone? Where are the people who promised to stand with me? Where are the doors that were supposed to open? Where is the breakthrough that should have come by now?" And in the silence of your tears, heaven whispers back, "Where I'm taking you, not everyone can follow." The enemy wants you to believe that isolation equals abandonment, that if you're hidden, you're worthless, that if you're not seen, you're not significant. But God's mathematics work differently than the world's. In his economy, the most valuable treasures are kept in the most secure places. You are not abandoned, you are buried like a seed in sacred soil. Think about it. A seed doesn't celebrate when it's planted in the ground. It doesn't feel honored when dirt is piled on top of it. From the seed's perspective, it's been buried, forgotten, left to die in darkness. But what the seed doesn't understand is that burial is not burial, it's beginning. The darkness isn't death, it's incubation. The pressure isn't punishment, it's preparation for breakthrough. David understood this. Before he ever wore a crown, he spent years in caves, hiding from King Saul. Can you imagine? The man God had already anointed as Israel's next king was living like a fugitive, running from shadows, questioning everything. Do you think David felt honored during those cave years? Do you think he felt chosen when he was eating scraps and sleeping on stone? But listen to this truth. Those cave years weren't wasted years, they were shaping years. God was building something in David's character that could only be forged in darkness. The humility to rule justly, the compassion to lead broken people, the wisdom to trust God's timing over human urgency. Your cave isn't your coffin, it's your coronation chamber. Jesus himself knew the power of hiddenness. For 30 years, the Son of God lived in obscurity, working with his hands, unrecognized, unnoticed. While religious leaders paraded their righteousness in public, the Messiah was hidden in a carpenter's shop, waiting for his Father's perfect timing. Can you feel the weight of that? The Savior of the world, hidden for 3 decades, not because he wasn't ready, not because he wasn't worthy, but because God guards what he values most. You've been feeling the sting of rejection, haven't you? People who once celebrated you now act like you don't exist. Opportunities you thought were yours have been given to others. Doors you believed God would open have remained stubbornly shut. And you've been wondering, what did I do wrong? Why has God forgotten me? But what if I told you that God hasn't forgotten you? He's protecting you. What if your hiddenness is actually heaven's highest honor? In 1 Kings 17, God told Elijah to hide by the brook Cherith, not because Elijah was in trouble, but because a famine was coming. While everyone else would struggle for survival, Elijah would be supernaturally sustained. His hiddenness wasn't shame, it was safety. His isolation wasn't rejection, it was divine protection. You've been feeling like you're missing out, but you're actually being shielded. While others are exposed to the coming storm, you've been hidden in the cleft of the rock. While others are vulnerable to the enemy's attacks, you've been covered by the shadow of the Almighty. The loneliness you feel isn't abandonment, it's consecration. God has set you apart because what He's preparing you for requires a level of purity that can only be achieved in solitude. Your tears aren't wasted, they're watering the soil of your becoming. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he led Israel out of Egypt. Paul spent 3 years in Arabia before he changed the world. Jesus spent 40 days in the desert before he began his ministry. The pattern is clear. Great purpose requires great preparation, and great preparation happens in great hiddenness. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. You're not being forgotten, you're being formed. And when God is ready to reveal you, when His timing is perfect, when the world is desperate for what you carry, you'll understand why the waiting was worth it. The enemy has been whispering lies to you. You're too old. You've missed your chance. If God wanted to use you, He would have done it by now. But those aren't God's thoughts. Those are hell's desperate attempts to make you abort your destiny before it's born. Your hiddenness isn't evidence of God's displeasure. It's proof of His protection. You're not being shelved. You're being shielded. And when the time comes, and it's coming soon, you'll emerge from this season, not bitter, but better. Not broken, but built. Not forgotten, but forged into something the world has never seen before. You cried, "Where is everyone?" And heaven whispered, "Where I'm taking you, not everyone can follow." If this part broke you open, type, "I'm the hidden one." You're not forgotten, you're chosen. But there's something else happening in your hiddenness that you haven't recognized yet. Something so profound, so life-altering, that it will change everything you thought you knew about your purpose. Do you really think this exhaustion is random? Do you believe God would put His chosen ones to sleep while the enemy advances? Or could it be that what feels like weakness is actually the most strategic move heaven has ever made? Listen to me, chosen one. This isn't rest, this is boot camp. While you've been wondering why you can't function like you used to, why your energy feels drained, why motivation seems like a foreign concept, God has been doing something far more profound than healing your wounds. He's been fitting you for armor while the world sleeps. You think you're being sidelined, but you're being weaponized. Every moment of this strange stillness, every hour of this unexplainable fatigue, it's not your breakdown, it's your military preparation. The enemy thought he had you cornered, didn't he? He whispered that you were falling behind, that you were weak, that you were failing. But what he didn't realize is that God was using your apparent weakness to build something in you that would terrify the very depths of hell. In Ephesians 6:12, Paul warns us, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." This isn't metaphor, beloved. This is military intelligence. There is a war raging in the spiritual realm, and yes, you are being prepared for active duty. But here's what the enemy never counted on. While he was celebrating your silence, God was downloading warfare strategies into your spirit. While he was mocking your stillness, heaven was installing weapon systems in your soul that he's never encountered before. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange stirring in your chest during prayer. That fire that seems to burn hotter when you're alone with God. That authority that rises up in you when you speak His name. That's not inspiration, chosen one. That's ordnance. Do you know what happens when a soldier goes through basic training? They don't just learn to march, they learn to endure. They don't just memorize tactics, they internalize warfare until it becomes second nature. Their reflexes are rebuilt, their instincts are rewired, their very DNA is reprogrammed for combat. That's what's been happening to you in this incubation. God hasn't been babying you. He's been building a warrior. Every test you've endured, every betrayal you've survived, every moment of isolation you've walked through, it wasn't punishment. It was preparation. Heaven has been stress testing your spirit, fortifying your faith, and calibrating your spiritual radar to detect the enemy's movements before he even thinks to make them. You thought you were being broken, but you were being forged. You thought you were being forgotten, but you were being fashioned into a weapon that hell has never seen before. But let me tell you something that will shake you to your core. This war isn't coming, chosen one. It's already here. The spiritual atmosphere around the world is shifting. The enemy has been positioning his forces, targeting the innocent, the vulnerable, the unsuspecting. And God has been positioning you. You are not a casualty of this war. You are the reinforcement. While others have been distracted by the noise of the world, you've been trained in the silence of the spirit. While others have been running on empty, you've been filled with the fuel of heaven. While others have been weakened by the chaos, you've been strengthened by the stillness. In 2 Chronicles 20:17, God spoke to his people facing an impossible battle. You will not need to fight in this battle. Position yourselves, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Do you hear that? Stand still. The same stillness that's been driving you crazy has been your military positioning. God is not hiding you to soothe you. He's building you for battle, and the spiritual war is about to break wide open. The enemy has been planning his final assault, targeting families, destroying marriages, breaking down faith, spreading fear like wildfire. But he made one fatal mistake. He assumed God's chosen ones would be caught off guard. He assumed you would be sleeping when the battle began. But you haven't been sleeping, have you? You've been incubating. You've been armoring up. You've been receiving downloads of divine strategy that will make hell tremble when you finally rise. The question isn't whether you're ready for war. The question is, are you ready to admit that you've been in training all along? Are you ready to stop apologizing for your intensity and start embracing your assignment? Are you ready to stop hiding your fire and start using it to burn down the enemy's strongholds? This war isn't physical, it's vibrational. It's fought in the realm of the spirit, where words become weapons, where prayers become missiles, where your very presence becomes a nuclear force against darkness. Your spirit has been calibrated for combat. Your faith has been fashioned for warfare. Your voice has been tuned to the frequency of heaven's army. The incubation is ending, chosen one. The armor is fitted. The weapons are loaded. And God is about to release you into the battlefield where you will discover that everything you thought was weakness was actually your greatest strength. Comment, "Arm me, Lord, now." This war isn't physical, it's vibrational, and your spirit must be fully equipped. Because what I'm about to reveal next will show you exactly how to recognize when the spiritual battle is about to break loose around you, and how to position yourself for victory. Do you ever wonder why you feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff while everyone else is having a picnic? Why your spirit is vibrating with an urgency that no one around you seems to understand? Why you can't shake the feeling that something massive is about to shift in this world? You're not losing your mind. You're not being paranoid. You're being awakened. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. While the masses are scrolling through their phones, complaining about gas prices and arguing about politics, you've been feeling something deeper, something darker, something that makes your soul restless at 3 a.m. You've been sensing the tremors before the earthquake hits. God has made you the early responder in a sleeping world. You see, there's a difference between those who sleep and those who are chosen to watch. In Matthew 26-40, Jesus found his disciples sleeping during his most crucial hour and said, "Could you not keep watch with me for 1 hour? But you've been keeping watch without even knowing why." The spiritual atmosphere around this nation is thickening. Can you feel it? The tension in the air that has nothing to do with the weather. The heaviness that settles on your chest when you watch the news. The way conversations feel more charged, more divided, more hostile than they used to be. You're not imagining it, you're detecting it. While others are distracted by surface-level chaos, you've been feeling the underground rumblings of a spiritual war that's about to break into the open. The enemy has been positioning his pieces on the chessboard for decades, and now he's ready to make his move. But God has been positioning his pieces too, and you are one of them. Do you remember the story of Noah? For years, he built an ark while his neighbors mocked him. The sky was clear, the weather was fine, there was no sign of rain. But Noah had heard from God about what was coming. He prepared for a flood that no one else could see on the horizon. You are Noah in this generation. The incubation you've been experiencing isn't just personal healing, it's strategic preparation. God has been downloading spiritual intelligence into your spirit while you've been in this cocoon of stillness. You've been receiving classified information about the times we're living in, about the battles ahead, about the souls that will need rescue. But here's what will shock you. The alarm hasn't sounded yet for the general population. They're still asleep, still comfortable, still believing that tomorrow will be just like today. But you can hear the trumpet blasts in the distance. In Ezekiel 33:6, God warns, "But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin, but I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood." Do you understand what this means? You're being set apart as a watchman, a spiritual early warning system. The restlessness you feel isn't anxiety, it's assignment. The burden you carry isn't depression, it's divine responsibility. This is why you can't just scroll past suffering anymore, why you can't ignore the homeless person on the street corner, why you feel compelled to pray for strangers, why you're drawn to people who are broken, lost, and desperate. God is calibrating your heart to recognize souls that need rescue. The coming storm isn't just political, it's not just economic, it's spiritual. And when it hits, people are going to be caught completely off guard. They're going to panic, they're going to despair. They're going to look for someone who has answers, someone who has peace in the chaos, someone who can guide them through the darkness. That someone is you. You think you're being sidelined, but you're being positioned. You think you're being forgotten, but you're being fortified. While others are building their platforms, God has been building your character. While others are chasing visibility, God has been giving you spiritual sight. The prophet Habakkuk cried out, "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?" But God responded, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false." Your appointed time is coming. The spiritual gifts that have been dormant in you are about to activate. The prophetic insight that you've been dismissing as just feelings is about to become crystal clear. The healing power that you've sensed stirring in your hands is about to manifest. The ability to discern spirits that you've always had is about to become your most valuable weapon. But you must understand, you're not being prepared for a comfortable ministry. You're being prepared for a rescue mission. You're being equipped to pull people from the fire when the flames begin to rise. Say it now. I will not hit snooze on God's alarm. This is your final warning before deployment. The incubation period is almost over. The spiritual war is coming, and you are being awakened to stand guard over the souls that others cannot see are already under attack. The question is, will you accept your assignment as a watchman, or will you roll over and go back to sleep? Dear chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred journey together, I want you to hold these truths close to your heart. What you've experienced isn't punishment, it's preparation. The stillness you felt isn't abandonment, it's divine incubation. The weight pressing down on your spirit isn't meant to crush you, it's meant to compress you into the diamond God always knew you could become. Remember this, you are not broken, you are not forgotten, you are not behind schedule. You are exactly where God needs you to be, wrapped in His protective embrace while He prepares you for what's coming next. The spiritual war we've talked about isn't something you have to face alone. In fact, you were never meant to walk this path in isolation. There's a community of believers right here, right now, who understand exactly what you're going through. People who have felt that same heaviness, that same divine stillness, that same mysterious preparation happening in their souls. To everyone watching this, I want you to know you are not alone in this experience. Others are being incubated right alongside you. Others are feeling that same divine pressure, that same holy transformation. And we're all in this together, covered by the same God who never sleeps, never slumbers, and never abandons His children. I want to thank every single one of you who has stayed with me through this entire message. Your presence here isn't accidental, it's appointed. The fact that you've remained until these final moments tells me your spirit recognizes the truth we've shared. If this message has touched your heart, if you've felt God speaking directly to your situation, please don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and let us know what God is stirring in your heart. Ask your questions. This community is here to pray with you, to stand with you, to remind you that you're not walking this path alone. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel so you never miss a word that God wants to speak into your life. But before you go, I have one final question for you. Are you ready to trust God's process, even when you can't see the full picture? Are you willing to rest in His timing, knowing that what He's building in you is worth every moment of waiting? Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, I come before you right now with every person who has heard this message. Lord, you see each heart, each struggle, each moment of doubt and confusion. You know the weight they've been carrying, the questions they've been asking, the fears that have whispered lies in the darkness. Father, I place my spiritual hand on the shoulder of every chosen one listening to these words. Let them feel your presence right now. Let them know, deep in their bones, that you have not forgotten them. You have not abandoned them. You have not left them to face this season alone. Lord, bless the work you're doing in their lives. Strengthen their faith during this time of divine incubation. Give them supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding. Help them to trust your timing, even when everything in their flesh wants to rush ahead. Father, protect them from the enemy's attacks. Shield them from doubt, from fear, from the lies that try to convince them they're not worthy of your love. Remind them daily that they are chosen, they are loved, they are precious in your sight. Open doors that no man can shut. Prepare pathways they cannot yet see. Position them for the breakthrough that's coming. And when the time is right, when the incubation is complete, give them the courage to step into everything you've prepared for them. Lord, bless this community of believers. Knit their hearts together in love. Help them to encourage one another, to pray for one another, to remind each other of your faithfulness when the journey gets difficult. And Father, we thank you that your plans for each of us are good. We thank you that you work all things together for our good. We thank you that what the enemy meant for evil, you are turning into something beautiful. In Jesus' mighty name, we pray. Amen. Remember, beloved, you are not alone. God is with you. This community is with you, and the best is yet to come. Until we meet again, may God's peace guard your heart. And you've been receiving classified information about the times we're living in, about the battles ahead, about the souls that will need rescue. But here's what will shock you. The alarm hasn't sounded yet for the general population. They're still asleep, still comfortable, still believing that tomorrow will be just like today. But you can hear the trumpet blasts in the distance. In Ezekiel 33:6, God warns, "But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet to warn the people, and the sword comes and takes someone's life, that person's life will be taken because of their sin, but I will hold the watchman accountable for their blood." Do you understand what this means? You're being set apart as a watchman, a spiritual early warning system. The restlessness you feel isn't anxiety, it's assignment. The burden you carry isn't depression, it's divine responsibility. This is why you can't just scroll past suffering anymore, why you can't ignore the homeless person on the street corner, why you feel compelled to pray for strangers, why you're drawn to people who are broken, lost, and desperate. God is calibrating your heart to recognize souls that need rescue. The coming storm isn't just political. It's not just economic, it's spiritual. And when it hits, people are going to be caught completely off guard. They're going to panic. They're going to despair. They're going to look for someone who has answers, someone who has peace in the chaos, someone who can guide them through the darkness. That someone is you. You think you're being sidelined, but you're being positioned. You think you're being forgotten, but you're being fortified. While others are building their platforms, God has been building your character. While others are chasing visibility, God has been giving you spiritual sight. The prophet Habakkuk cried out, "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?" But God responded, "Write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Your appointed time is coming. The spiritual gifts that have been dormant in you are about to activate. The prophetic insight that you've been dismissing as just feelings is about to become crystal clear. The healing power that you've sensed stirring in your hands is about to manifest. The ability to discern spirits that you've always had is about to become your most valuable weapon. But you must understand, you're not being prepared for a comfortable ministry. You're being prepared for a rescue mission. You're being equipped to pull people from the fire when the flames begin to rise. Say it now. I will not hit snooze on God's alarm. This is your final warning before deployment. The incubation period is almost over. The spiritual war is coming, and you are being awakened to stand guard over the souls that others cannot see are already under attack. The question is, will you accept your assignment as a watchman, or will you roll over and go back to sleep? Dear chosen one, as we come to the end of this sacred journey together, I want you to hold these truths close to your heart. What you've experienced isn't punishment, it's preparation. The stillness you felt isn't abandonment, it's divine incubation. The weight pressing down on your spirit isn't meant to crush you, it's meant to compress you into the diamond God always knew you could become. Remember this, you are not broken, you are not forgotten, you are not behind schedule. You are exactly where God needs you to be, wrapped in His protective embrace while He prepares you for what's coming next. The spiritual war we've talked about isn't something you have to face alone. In fact, you were never meant to walk this path in isolation. There's a community of believers right here, right now, who understand exactly what you're going through. People who have felt that same heaviness, that same divine stillness, that same mysterious preparation happening in their souls. To everyone watching this,